Alright, hello students of KDU. My name is Crystal. I'm from RoundTable Game Studios, and I am here to present you a little bit of tips and tricks on how to manage your projects. Now, as I understand, most of the students here are going to be GPS 1 student next semester or are already in their like third, fourth week of GPS 1. So I'll be focusing more on how you manage your project. It should still be some valuable information for you, even though you're about 2-3 weeks in. So, uh, if there's any question, I'll take your questions after the talk. So, let's get on with it. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Crystal. I am also a graduate of KDU. I graduated in 2015. I had 4 years of experience as a game designer and another 2 years plus experience as a project manager. As of right now, I am the current project manager of RoundTable Game Studios. Just a little bit more. I have done multiple games. I started out in a small company and helped produce Doctor Life, and later on in another company, I have managed and helped push out the production of these other games. And I also have dealt with clients such as Hong Leong Bank, Managing Heritage, and now I'm here in Roundtable Game Studios and I help them push their first game. Dying Flame is available on Steam if you want to look at it. So, a little bit about project management. A project manager actually does a lot of things. Uh, More commonly, you will know a project manager to plan and schedule a project, but a project manager also has to take other things into account like resources, risk, client facing, people, and communicating. So that's just a little bit of what a project manager does. So, where do you start when you want to start a project? The first thing you need to do is to get to know your teammates. Gather around all of you and talk to each other. Talk is not just, hey, my name is this and that's it. No, you have to actually sit down and talk about your strengths, your weaknesses, and your skills. For example, one artist might be fantastic at 2D concept work, but she doesn't really know how to do 3D, or that programmer over there doesn't know how to do AI behavior, but he's fantastic at doing combat oriented mechanics. So get to know each other's strengths. This is really valuable because when you start planning for your project, you know what your team is capable of. So if you have a team full of 2D specialized artists, don't make a 3D game because that's not where team strength lies. Also talk about what you want to learn for the what you want to learn of from this project. Like for example, if it's a 3D themed game based on your project brief, you might want to learn, I want to learn how to better do characters. Or the programmer might say, I want to better do AI behavior. Or the designer, I say, I want to be a better level designer. So when you discuss and come up with a plan for what your project is to be, you know better. So I have to keep in mind that these are the things that we want to learn. Knowing this is also a really good motivator for pushing your game forward because then you are actually doing things that you want to do. So during this meeting, it will also help you determine the positions in the team, like who your leads will be. The leads are the people in charge of making the decisions. So in KDU, you will have art, design, and programming leads. Now, leads are important because they are the ones that are in charge of making some decision, and they will help the project manager plan the scheduling. If somebody has a question, the lead is in charge of finding the answer for those questions. They don't always have the answer, but they are the one in charge of trying to find that answer. Who should be the project manager? The project manager can literally be anyone in the team. It does not necessarily need to be the designer. It can be anyone, preferably someone with good communication and management skill, because the project manager is going to be the one that is asking the questions and setting up the task. So preferably someone with good communication skill would be the project manager. So now that you know your team, what's the next step? So the first thing you have to make sure is that everybody is on the same page. So all of you are handed out your course outline at the beginning of the subject. So as GPS students, for example, your brief would dictate that you only have 12 weeks to finish a prototype. So that is something. So you're not looking for a complete game, you're looking for a prototype. Is the game 2D or 3D? What's the theme of the project, and when your given milestones are? You have to make sure everyone knows these details. All right. And then next is identify your team's goal. Like when you talk to each other about what you want to learn. So this will play to a certain extent affect what your project is going to be, because you want to try and encapsulate as many of these goals so that everyone can learn from the project. So maybe some of you want to be better at level design, so maybe the game can be a little bit heavier emphasis on level design. All right. While you're planning, you have to make sure to keep the project scope in mind. You only have 12 weeks, so don't overextend yourself. Some of you might be very ambitious. You want to reach for the stars, but you have to be realistic. You cannot create God of War AAA title level with only 12 weeks and inexperience. Your whole team is inexperienced to do so. So it's not realistic. So you have to set yourself realistic goals. Keep your timeline in mind, keep your abilities in mind, and keep a tight control over it, because if you overextend, you are planning to fail. Now, with scope comes resource management. Resources would include manpower, time, and money. As students, you don't need to worry too much about money because you're students. Money is not a factor. But manpower and time is crucial. Do you have sufficient manpower with the capability of doing the project you have in mind? This leads back to talking to your teammate, because you shared what you can and what you cannot do. So when you pitch a project to the team, you have to also bear in mind that, can my team finish this project? Does my team have the ability to finish this project? So don't pitch a game that you know will not jive well with the team. Because if they can't finish, if they can't do what you want them to do, you're still planning to fail. Time is also valuable. You only have 12 weeks. So you have to make sure that if you can do the task, can you do it in time? Because 12 weeks is not a lot. You're not here to make a complete game, you're here to make a prototype. But still, according to your abilities, can you do it within the time limit? So you have to make sure you have to keep all this in mind while you plan for your project. Now, to help you plan with your project, you have to come up with a schedule. So how do you set up a schedule? You have to first determine what your vertical slice requires. Now, vertical slice, your designers out there, you would know this to be your feature list, your must-haves, your good-to-haves, your nice-to-haves. Break it down and determine what your project requirements are. And then once you have that, break your project down into tasks. And then you can estimate how long it takes. Estimate, like maybe modeling the character takes 3 days, designing this mechanic takes a few days, and then as you plan it out, then you realize, oh, this is taking a lot more time than I initially thought. So you will know to scale down your operation. Keep your milestones in mind. According to your project brief, you have 3 milestones to hit, and make sure everybody knows those milestones. Now, a little bit on these terminologies. What is a milestone? A milestone is basically a checkpoint in your production to make sure that, hey, we are going according to plan. We have done all these tasks, and by this checkpoint, all these tasks is complete. It acts as a goal for your team to aim for during production. A vertical slice is a portion of the intended player experience, the prototype. So if you imagine a whole cake, like you see here in the picture, a whole cake, you are basically serving just a small little slice to your audience to say, hey, this is just a slice of our game. Imagine the whole cake. So it is to provide a proof of concept that, hey, we can do this. So this is a simplified example of how you break down a task. Like for artists, for example, you're doing the main character. So there's concept, there's modeling, there's unwrapping and rigging, there's texturing, there's baking, there's animation, there's a lot of things. Break it down as detailed as you can. Same goes with designers and programmers. Then you can estimate how many days it takes total for the project to finish. Then you can see whether it fits in your 12 weeks. Here, as you can see at the bottom, I put a 20% buffer. I'll explain more on what a buffer is, but give yourself extra time. A minimum of 20% and a maximum of 40%. Extra time in case things go wrong. In case, hey, my computer blew up. I lost all my progress and you have to do it again. Things like that. Right? This slide 18, is an example of a schedule. So here I've done it week per week because you all have other subjects besides GPS1. So you can't focus on this every day. But if you plan week per week what you aim to accomplish, then you know I have enough time to do this. I need to finish this by this date so that the project can move forward. You need to highlight when your milestone is and then make sure everybody knows by this milestone we need to have these tasks completed so that we can show progress. So after all this planning, what if something goes wrong? So this is called risk management. Risk management is where you put a safety net in case you fall down. It is important to plan for unexpected situations. Like I said earlier, your computer blowing up, or the pandemic hits and someone got COVID. Maybe you plan for this awesome mechanic and it's just not working out because you don't know how to make it function. Or maybe programmer has hit a snag where he doesn't know how to program something. So all this is taken into account when you give yourself extra time, just in case things don't work out. So these are little examples of why you would need safety nets. Something doesn't work out, someone got sick, your file got corrupted, something didn't work out. So it's always safer to have a backup. Don't plan your project to have no mistakes because mistakes are going to happen. Mistakes are human. So it's better that you plan for mistakes. If you have that extra time, nothing goes wrong, good for you. Then you have more room for polishing and feedback. Because it's always good to have more time to polish so that your final product looks better. So even after all that, even after all the safety nets that you put in, you just have a problem. So identify the problem first. For example, the 3D model is not animating properly in the engine. So you get the artist, get the programmer together and discuss why it's not animating properly. Did the artist not put it in the engine properly? Is there a problem with the rigging? Did the programmer not put it in the engine properly? Try to identify the problem and try to find a solution. If you cannot find a solution, that's fine. document the problem, document your efforts to solve this problem, and go to your lecturers. Your lecturers are the ones that are experienced in dealing with this sort of situation, and they will be better able to advise you on how to fix the problem. So this is why we put safety nets in case things like this happen. So always document the problem and your effort to solve this problem so that you can prove to your lecturers, hey, we have a problem and we've done all this and we still can't find an answer. So the lecturers will know that they won't suggest things that you have already thought of. So that was all about managing the project. But the project is not only about the details, it is also about the people. When you have deal with project, you will have to deal with the people doing the project alongside you. So how do you manage the people and what do you can expect from your team? So first things first, you should always meet and check in with your teammate. Meet with them regularly and share your progress update. You don't need to do it every day because you all have other subjects, but at least meet weekly, not just during class days, but on another day to show progress and have enough time for feedback before the class. So if your class is on Friday, perhaps meet on Wednesday. So, hey, I did this class. Is there anything you want me to change about it? If sorry, if someone did something great, they did something really well, praise your teammate, share your successes. Because if you don't praise your teammate, even though they did really well, they're not going to feel appreciated. They don't feel appreciated. They're going to lose the motivation, continue the project, feel that they're not. So always put in a good word for your teammate. Always say, hey, great job. You'll be surprised that the little words of information like this would go a long way for a person. So yes, work hard, play hard. We're all in game dev. Please go and play some games. Don't work all the time. Right? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy and all that. So make sure to give some time for yourself, pace yourself, because overworking is not very productive. Overworking is very counterproductive because eventually you burn out. So always pace yourself, set some time for work, set some time for playing, gather your teammates around, play a round of games together. I don't know, play Among Us, popular, right? So what about the common student question of my teammate is not doing anything. They are not pulling their weight. Right? How do you deal with uncooperative teammate? This is a tough subject because from my experience working all these years, the first thing you got to do is to investigate what happened and why it's happening. Is that particular teammate going through something hard? Like perhaps they're not feeling well. Are they sick? Or perhaps they've hit a roadblock and they don't know how to move forward. So it's very important to investigate why this is happening. Go up to that teammate and discuss, hey, what's the situation? Can we find a solution together? Right? If you don't know how to do something, maybe we can go to the lecturer and ask, hey, we've hit a roadblock. Can we discuss how to fix this? So find out why. It's important to keep a complete written record of your effort. It can be a screenshot of your Discord, of your WhatsApp, but make sure to document these effort down, because if the worst case scenario happens and that teammate just does not want to cooperate, you have evidence to show to your lecturers that, hey, we did our work, this guy did not do their work, and that's why the project did not come together. But we did our part. So at least you are in the working world. A person who is not cooperating will not be able to stay in the same company. There will be no employer willing to let a person sit down and do nothing and still get paid. But as students cannot get fired, the best thing you can do is document all these problems. Document what is happening, what you have done to solve this problem, and show your lecturers and say, hey, this student is giving us problem. He's not going to listen to us. Can you help us do something about it? Can you talk to him? Can you find out what's the problem? Maybe he doesn't want to talk to us. So it's important to always keep communication lines open. But sometimes these things happen. So keep your evidence, talk to your lecturers. That's the best advice I can. So that's the end of my presentation. It's a pretty short presentation. So I'm open for any questions if you guys want to ask. So thank you. All right. So this comes down to breaking down your task when you are scheduling. So you have your goals, you have your milestones ready. So you break down your task. Like let's say for milestone 1, I need to get the main characters done. So you plan out the main character needs to be concept, it needs to be modeled, it needs to be animated. Plan as much, break your task down as much as possible so that you can account for everything. It's okay if you can't. That's why you put the buffer. In my experience, 20% is usually enough. But as students, because you are inexperienced, you can put up to 40% because unexpected things happen. So give yourself the extra time, for up to 40% extra time in case things doesn't go well. But that's why breaking down your task is so helpful, because then you can see, okay, I budget myself 2 days for concept. Try not to go over that 2 days unless something really doesn't go wrong. Something really is not going right. So that's why 20 to 40% usually is your extra time. With RoundTable Games, is the first time I'm actually publishing to Steam. So there was actually a lot of things that I didn't know. So it was a lot of trial and error, and making sure that I had enough time to make sure that if I didn't do something properly, I had backup. So that's why risk management is so important. Just in case the project doesn't want to load into Steam, or there's missing assets. So make sure you plan in advance. One of the problem that we faced was on the launch day itself, there was apparently a problem with Steam that our latest project file did not upload properly. So when it released, a lot of the streamers that we hired downloaded the wrong file. Yes, so in those situations, it's best not to panic. We just reverted our changes and got in contact with all the streamers that say, hey, there was some sort of mix-up with Steam. Can you please re-download and start the game? That's it. That's the best you can do, because the mix-up has already happened. There's no point panicking over it. So the best you can do is just manage the problem. I've been working this for more than, I've been working at this for more than 2 years. 3 years plus if you want to include college. And I've published several games, and I'm still hired. I mean, if I was not good at my job, I don't think I'll be able to get hired really easy. I think one of the more common problems students face is knowing their abilities on whether they can complete a project or not. It's good to challenge yourself, because now you're still students and mistakes aren't going to be as costly. But you also have to bear in mind what you are capable of doing. If you want to learn something new during this project, that is fine, but you have to take to account the other people together with you in the project. So in the case that you cannot deliver, what are you going to do about it? You need to have a backup plan. In case you are trying this epic 3D model, but that doesn't go through, how are you going to fix that problem? You have to make sure, like I said just now, the the risk management part, buffering. You have a certain amount of day that you have tasked to yourself to model something, but you are going over that time limit. Then you know something is wrong. I have to back away from this because this is not working. This is more of a marketing question. So when we make a game, our company has a certain philosophy that we follow, that we are doing narrative-based game. So already that in and of itself, we are not doing something that's super trendy. But it is important to know that whatever you are creating has a market, because you cannot make a game that targets everyone. There's no such thing as everybody is my target audience. You have to be sure who your target audience is. For example, all the battle royale games are targeted towards competitive gamers. I will answer your question, Hansen. Let me answer Adriana first. So, if you want to publish a puzzle-based game, that is fine, but you have to make sure that number one, you have a target audience. Number two, you know where to push your game. Do not push a puzzle-based game in a place where it's all battle royale themed. That's not the right way to go, because you're not going to get any support there. So publish your puzzle-based game and market it where the puzzle players see it. I do not believe in crunch. I'm very against crunch. So the way I plan my projects, we rarely crunch. Perhaps a couple of days at most, a couple extra hours, 3 hours extra on submission days. So on submission days, yeah. So average, we work around 9 to 5. Then because I give task out for the week, as long as you finish your task for the week, I really don't care how many hours you're spending on it, as long as you give me what you're supposed to deliver to me. Because as long as you deliver what you're supposed to deliver, we're on time. Like, how many years ago? That's almost 10 years ago, though.
Yes,
Like I said, the problem that I remember facing was that we didn't know how to judge our abilities. That was the first thing. We reached too much for things that we couldn't do, and then we ended up not being able to do the task that we were supposed to do, and then we ended up not delivering anything because the KDU would want to challenge you, but you have to know how much to challenge yourself. Is the challenge that you set yourself up to reasonably within your capabilities of reaching in the first place? So I remember that in my GPS2, my programmer didn't want to do the project because it was beneath him. He said it was too simple. But when the project got approved by the lecturers, he couldn't do it because it was actually harder than he thought it was going to. And because of that, we struggled, because he kept saying it was easy, and then he didn't do the required work. Yeah, so in my experience, learning how to judge your capabilities is very important, and that's how I learned to break down your task. That was Mr. Johan. Right. So break down your task. That's why I gave you that example. It's simpler to give an art example, I guess. For artists, you have, let's say, the main character and enemy, and then you have the environment, you have props, and you have other things as well. So you break them down individually as much as possible. Characters will need to be concept, and then they need to be modeled, and then they need to be rigged, and then they need to be animated. How long will each task take? Because if you go over the number of days that you set for yourself, you're in trouble because you have severely underestimated something. Right? So learn your own abilities. Make sure that you are capable of doing the task that you set yourself to. That's the most important thing that I learned when I was a student in GPS 1 and 2. Another thing that I learned is also documenting your contributions. So if you did this particular mechanic, make sure you own that mechanic, because there will be other people who will try to claim credit for something you have done and make it out like not do anything. So always document what you have done. And once you document what you have done and something is said against you, you can prove to your lecturers that, hey, I did this work, here's the evidence. So that really is the biggest part of what I learned during GPS 1 and 2. But really, just document everything that you have done and everything that you have tried to do, so that people know that you have made the effort. When you work from home, there is a certain amount of discipline that you need to have, because the temptation is just to lie down and do nothing. So far, here in Roundtable games, everybody is pretty responsible. I give them a task, and as long as they finish it, it's fine. And then they will take the initiative to, hey, since I finished, I'm going to move on to that task. So there's a certain amount of discipline that you need. The only con I can think about is sometimes when I need something, I need to tag someone, I need to ping someone, I have to wait. Instead of in an office situation, I can just go over to the table and poke there and say, hey, I need this. So, but other than that, no, I haven't really faced any really large difficulty working from home, because everyone, like I said, is pretty disciplined, everyone's pretty responsible. I see the challenge, hope to combat it in future during GP. Yes. Uh yes, GPS 1 is your first hurdle in learning how to work in a team. Don't be my advice is, don't be too disappointed if things don't work out, because it would be your first time working with the other streams, art, design, and programming working together. So don't be too disappointed if things don't work out. You will have future opportunities to work with other people and perhaps learn from your mistake. Happens on a whim. Usually we plan the updates beforehand. We have like a roadmap of what we want to do with the game. So, for example, we released Dying Flame in March or February. March. We released the game in March. We are still keeping an eye on it, because we don't have content plan for the game itself, but we have marketing plans on how to further push the game. Like Halloween is coming up, and we have a marketing plan to push the game during Halloween, because it's a horror game. It really depends on how long we keep an eye on it. It depends from company to company. We are keeping an eye on it for the next couple of years, because it is our first game. So yeah, but other companies, I'm sure, does it differently. Usually updates are planned beforehand. They are not done on a whim. You really can't do anything just on a whim just because you want to. It has to be planned. This really is dependent on yourself. If you're putting out a personal game, you have to set a time limit for yourself. Like, I just put my game out for testing, and I will receive feedback from point A to point B. And then after that, you just in order to not overburden yourself with extra work, stop looking at feedback after your cutoff point. Yeah,
Yeah.
set a deadline for yourself, because or not you'll be looking at feedback for forever. So set a deadline for yourself. Like, I give myself a month to collect data collect feedback for my game. So after that month, don't look at any other new data. So you set a deadline for yourself so that, or not feedback just keeps coming in and you'll be compiling feedback after feedback for God knows how long. So set a deadline for yourself. It really is dependent on the personality of your team. In my experience, all the teams that I have been with is very chill, very laid back. So we got to know each other through playing games. Played Left 4 Dead together. So we got to know who gets really unreliable during a stressful situation versus who can handle stress really well and not scream at people. This is not the best way. It is one way you can choose to play games together, revealing each other's weaknesses. Yes, it was because basically we learned who was more likely to stab each other in the back. We played Left 4 Dead together versus mode, and when someone gets ambushed by an infected, you can hear the amount of screaming, and you can judge a person's character based on the amount of screaming. Was what I learned. Yes. The louder, the less reliable. No. I myself am a very loud person. That does not make me unreliable. It just makes me very excitable. But what comes up from your mouth is also very telling. Like, oh, you killed me, therefore I am going to kill you. If you know the person well and you know they're just like that because they are playing a game is one thing. But if a person is really serious about this sort of thing, you can tell that they are not a person to joke around with. A game that has a co-op mode is really telling because you can tell who is willing to help you during certain times when playing the game. It's like, oh, I need a medic, but no one comes and help you. Well, maybe you should have played the medic. It can be very telling depending on the type of games you play. If you want to promote creativity, maybe play some more party-related games like Jackbox. Play Phasmophobia to test your loyalty. Yes. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to how to do an icebreaker. I mean, we're all in game development. Go play some games. Minecraft, the true way of bonding. Yes, we played Minecraft too. Even now in RoundTable games, we play Minecraft together. We play Terraria together. It's very telling when someone summoned the queen bee without telling us. I think in RoundTable games, we recently played a Jackbox game. And we learned a lot about each other because we learned who can bullshit the most. It was a game about doing presentations. And we learned all the designers were expert at bullshitting through presentations. Somebody else has to step up. Basically, if the lead is not doing their work, they're not very well deserving of the lead position. Somebody else has to step up and take over before the project spirals out of control. The project manager usually is the one who would receive these complaints from the team and saying, hey, our lead is not giving us tasks, and time is running out. So the first thing first is identify the problem, what's going on. And if you need to, appoint someone else to take over the lead role so that the project can still keep moving. Usually, yes, because hey, the person in charge is not doing his job. You can't just stagnate there and do nothing. So the best case scenario is that if you can appoint someone else more responsible so that the project can still move on. Now, if the original lead who did not do anything wants to be a dick about it, that's why you document evidence. That's why you say that, hey, what's going on? And you document that you have tried to talk to the lead about this problem. And if the lead just still doesn't want to do anything, oh, I'm sorry, you had your chance. I've documented everything. I've already sent it to the to the lectures, I have to move on. I have to choose someone else. I can't just sit there and wait for you forever, right? Yeah. So the first thing is usually is identify what the problem is first. What is up with the lead? Is the lead, I don't know, swamped with work? He has too much work on his own plate to be able to take care of other people. If that's the case, then get someone to help the lead so that he has less things on his plate so that he can still do his duties. If the lead is just not doing it for the sake of not doing it and is trying to get an easy grade, well, document the problem. Document that, hey, this guy is not doing this despite everyone telling him, please do your job. He's not doing it, okay? At least you have a backup person to handle the task and the project can still go on. And it's documented that this guy is not deserving of whatever grade because he didn't do shit. Screen calls and recordings. Yes, these are part of evidence, part of recording that you have done your due diligence of getting this guy to go and work, but he doesn't want to. Must there be a lead? Yes. Yes, there has to be a lead. Because the lead is the person in charge in case somebody has a problem. Somebody has to take charge because otherwise, if no one is in charge, no one knows who to go to. Because the lead is not there to hand out tasks. If everybody is the lead, no one is the lead. Goodness. So you need to have one person in charge. Somebody that knows what they are doing is preferable, yes. Oh, what a common problem. It sounds very unfair, but number one, you have to move on. You cannot stagnate just because that one person is missing or 2%, right? In a real working scenario, that person would be written up and get fired. But because students, you cannot fire and you cannot replace people, your whole project is in jeopardy. That's why you have to document this guy is not doing their job. But everyone else is still moving forward with their part of the project and everyone has evidence that they have contributed. Therefore, at the very least, the rest of the students are not fucked. Right? So it will sound very unfair, but if somebody they can take up the task that guy did not do. But make sure that that person does not get any of the credit. Because if person A flakes out and person B did the work, person B deserves that credit, not person A, just because he was supposed to do it. If he didn't do anything, he did nothing. So that's why it's so important. Yeah. If he returns, if he suddenly halfway returns and decides that, hey, I want to do something, then record his contribution from that point onwards. So if I did not do anything from week 1 to week 5, it's recorded that, yeah, you didn't do shit and you only came into the project last minute because you thought you were going to fail. So that's why it's so important to record this evidence that, hey, our group is so far behind, even though we have buffer, because this guy just did not do shit. So you have it recorded. It's a very common student problem, I will admit. I have witnessed a lot of other people go through this. Personally, I have gone through it once or twice, not an overwhelming number, but I have seen enough people going through this and seen enough students going through it that it's a problem for students. But if you go into the working world, this is not really an issue because people get fired. You will get a verbal warning, then you'll get a written warning, and then you'll probably get fired because no employer is going to want to pay you to do nothing. I think university is harder than working because in university, there's a lot of things that is not under your control compared to when you're working. I mean, when you're working, there is also a lot of things that's not under your control, but you can bargain for it. Like when you have a client and they have their project brief, you can discuss, whereas in uni, it's set in stone. So yeah, uni is actually a lot harder than work. While you have some freedom, there's a lot of things where you don't have freedom on. If you survive uni, you can survive out there. Maybe, maybe not. It really depends. It is really on you on whether you can adapt because there are some practices in uni that you don't really learn until you come out to the working world. In university, you have more than one subject. Whereas at work, it's not that you have multiple subjects. You are sometimes, if you work in a small company, you are dedicated to just one project, and you have to learn to give your best to that one task that you're doing rather than spread yourself out on multiple things. So you got to relearn a little bit on how you focus on your task. I remember I struggled with that because as a student, I took like 6, 7 subjects. And when I went to work, I just had that one thing and I did it really fast. And I was like, why am I doing it very fast? Because I kept thinking that, oh, I need time for other things. Whereas actually I didn't need, I needed to just focus full concentration and devotion on that one task and make it as the best that I could. It depends on the company that you work for. If you're working in a big company like Ubisoft or Streamline, you might work on multiple projects, but you will still be a dedicated one item. That's one example I can think right off the bat. Another thing is discussion. In university, a student has a lot of power to determine what their project is going to be. When you work, you don't have that much power because it's all in a client's hand. Sure, you can discuss for it, but in the end of the day, it's up to what the client wants. So you have to learn to accept that, hey, I think my idea is better, so the client is shit. No, that's not gonna. Client wants what they want, and they're paying you for it. You can try to, if it's a really bad idea on the client side, you can try to convince them. But if that's what they want, that's what you will deliver unless you don't want to take the contract. Yes, in university, the client is technically the university in uni, but they're not very picky. So students still have a lot of power